challenging working full-time all day. But I think it is quite doable. There are some startups here run by med students. It is doable.
Okay, thank you for your answers and for your time. I hope our listeners learned something new about medtech field. So thank you, and we're continuing with the next guest of this episode.
Thank you.
And we continue Tribecast summer tour, and we're now in Helsinki in Maria 01 co-working space. This is actually a co-working space. Let's find out together, because now we have Kim, who knows everything about Maria, or pretty much everything. Hello, Kim. And before we start talking about what you do professionally, tell us a few things about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kim. So about me. Something super random. Well, I have a dog and 2 bunnies. And 2 weeks ago, my dog almost ate one of my bunnies. So there you go. That's an interesting thing about me. And well, other than that, I really love design, art, and writing is one of my passions. So definitely that.
Okay.
Yes.
So how did you end up in Maria 01?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a journey. I think I could start from 2 years ago when I had actually landed my first full-time job after university. And after 10 months into that job, then I thought, okay, now it's time to maybe, set some focus into finishing school. Had to finish my thesis, so I thought, okay, now I need to take a break from this work and finish school. And it was just getting difficult to juggle being full-time parent plus full-time job plus trying to finish school. So once I finished my thesis and I graduated, I thought okay, now it's time to go back to the job search. And already a few months back, I had seen this new platform that popped up into Helsinki, in Finland, called the Hub.fi. And I thought okay, this sounds quite interesting. There were some interesting startup jobs in there. And at some point, they opened this position to be part of the Hub team. And I thought that sounds quite interesting. It was a community manager role, if I'm right. So I applied for it. And after a few interviews, I ended up working together with my colleague back in the day, Silja. And the thing is that I ended up at Maria because the Hub is one of these projects that we run here at Maria. So there seemed to be the need after a few months to have someone, in my position, which is Chief Marketing Officer. And yes, that's how I ended up there.
So what is Maria 01? Am I right saying that it's a co-working space?
Well, I think that is one of the things that we do offer. Yes, of course, for startups, when you apply for a membership, we do have some co-working areas here at Maria. I think it is always really difficult to define exactly, are we a co-working space or not? I think we are a startup co-working space, maybe. I think that is the easiest way to maybe define it so that people understand, because we are not really an incubator, as we do not have a set program for the startups to be here, to go through, nor an accelerator. So I think we fall into that category where we, provide space for the community, for the startups to be here, to develop, get to know other entrepreneurs as well, all inside this community space, which is not a co-working space, but something a bit more. Does it make sense?
So not a co-working space and not a hospital.
Not a co-working space and not a hospital. I think that's maybe the secret to the success, that I think it is what you want it to be. Okay. Yes.
Maybe it's some kind of a logo for Helsinki startup ecosystem. It is what you want to be.
That is true. That's true. That sounds like a good headline. Yeah, definitely. Why not?
Since we started talking about definitions, how do you define a startup?
Whoa, that's a tough one. I mean, I think there are many definitions out there. Clearly, I would say that a startup has to be a company that starts from the promise of solving a big problem, utilizing technology and wanting to innovate something inside their field. And maybe not disrupt an industry, because I think that's also a very big buzzword nowadays that we call startups disruptors. I feel that now there's almost a recipe that you can follow sometimes to build a startup. So I think it is just about wanting to solve a problem, a company that wants to solve a very specific problem, utilizing technology, and that, of course, has very high potential for growth. I think it has to be something like that.
How many members does Maria community have nowadays?
Yes, so members, we can talk about it two different ways. It could be either members, meaning the amount of people inside the whole community. We reached our 1,000 member mark approximately, 2 to 3 months ago. Right now we are like 1,100 plus. And when it comes to companies, startups around 114. And there we are talking about, startups, also games companies that we, of course, also count as startups. And everything else outside of that then would be the venture capital companies, ecosystem supporters. And yes, that would be it, actually.
Right. Since we kind of agreed that Maria is more than a co-working space, but also a community, do you have any kind of, traditions or do you have any regular events here?
Ooh, that's a good point. I think maybe that's something that when it comes to things that we do inside the community, like traditions, probably I can't think of any traditions, but there are things that we do in a regular basis. For example, the monthly community breakfasts that we do together with the community. I think this year we are going to be testing something new, but in the past it has been about having guests discussing, let's say, a timely topic and having a discussion around it. I think this time we are probably going to start testing with having a bit more of like company introductions. So like new companies in Maria having 2 to 3 minutes to introduce themselves, etc. So I think this season we're going to try something new. Well, other than that, I think we are really known for our parties. I think that's something you can't deny. We apparently do very good parties, and at least the ones we've had, I think they have had some impact in the ecosystem. Their parties people have remembered, and having party in a tunnel, we don't do that many tunnel parties anymore, so sorry about that. But in the past, I would say those have been quite legendary. And yeah, other than that, what else were you asking about? Events, right? So yes, Maria itself, we sometimes like to partner with different organizations with whom we think, okay, this is something proper and of value for the community. So sometimes we might partner with companies such as last year we had the Growth Tribe event, which was about growth hacking. It was really good. A lot of people attended. So this season we might be doing a few of those. I think in the pipeline we have B2B growth marketing with a company. I don't know, am I supposed to say names or just with the F company? And then we are also planning the part 2 for a video marketing event we had during springtime together with At Lunch. And other than that, in-house we have the Shortcut, an organization that helps, I would say, foreign people in Finland get integrated inside the startup ecosystem, either by helping them start a company or helping them to work inside a startup. And they run different programs throughout the year. Right now, they are actually having this event September 2nd together with the Hub. It's called Talent Heist. And the idea is to have this matchmaking day event to connect talents with the startups, and also for the startups to have like a pool of highly skilled talent. So that is an interesting event. I believe you can sign up to join the event and hopefully find your next job. And then, next week there is already, let's say here in the ecosystem, something that is cool is the QS Demo Day on the 29th, so next Thursday. So all the companies that were part of the accelerator during the summer will be pitching to the investors and the jury and people joining the event about their companies. So that's going to be interesting. We have some Maria companies that were part of that accelerator. For example, Nyxo was part of the accelerator. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, to be there.
Okay. How can a company join Maria community? Do you have any requirements? Do you have an application form?
Yeah, I think having a startup has become so popular that most people will think like if you start your consulting, agency, you are a startup. But I'm afraid that for us here at Maria, that's really not the case. We definitely do have a selection process and an application form on our website for companies to apply to. And the thing is that we are looking for tech startups. It's always annoying to have to say tech startups because to me, a startup should already do something with tech to be called a startup. And of course, we want to see companies that are doing something interesting, trying to solve an interesting problem, companies that are already, for example, on a stage where they have raised some funding. They probably already have some paying customers, maybe reference from investors. You know, that there is some solidity behind the team and the company. So in that sense, like, yeah, early stage startups are our focus. We don't have a preference when it comes to fields, when it comes to financial tech or health technology. I think it's all about what they are doing. What's the runway? What future plans do they have? What sort of team they have? And during the application, when you start to fill the information, when we get it and we read it and we're like, hey, yeah, these people seem like, yeah, they have something legit going on, then we would often invite them for an interview and have a face-to-face chat with them. It is also the case that we might not always have the space the startups request. So that's when we, for example, might have to put some companies on a waiting list to make sure that we can be able to cater their needs in the future, etc. So that's sort of the selection process we have. I would say it's very much case-by-case basis, seeing who is applying, seeing who we have in-house, and seeing what else is out there. So it's also about sort of like comparing who is in the landscape.
Okay, and probably have one last question.
Yes.
Since you are deeply inside the Helsinki startup ecosystem, in your opinion, what's specific about Helsinki as a startup ecosystem compared to the rest of Finland and rest of the Nordic countries?
Wow, I think the Helsinki startup ecosystem is very tight-knit. I think we have like a really good selection of players and divisions of roles. So meaning that I feel that we do not overlap too much based on, for example, what role Maria01 has, what role the Shortcut has, what role, for example, Startup Sauna, Q as Accelerator. I feel that we all fill in a gap inside the ecosystem. And I think that's very important when we see the big picture. And I think that's also why Helsinki has been rated, for example, as one of the most locally connected ecosystems in the world, because I think we have like a good definition of roles inside the ecosystem. And when we think about the startups, they know where to ask for help, where to go if, depending on the stage they are in, they know where to apply, they know where to look for funding. I feel like there is good information here in Helsinki and good defined roles for everyone.
Okay, I think I'm done with the questions for today. Thank you very much for the interview. And on the record, I'd like to invite you and Maria01 team to Tampere 3rd of October to a Stream Startup Festival.
Yes.
The tickets are already on sale and hope to see you there. And maybe Tampere startup community can learn a bit from Helsinki startup community.
Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully we will see again during Stream Startup Festival.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And we continue with Tribecast Summer Tour. We're still in Helsinki since it's Helsinki episode, and we're still at Maria01 co-working space and community. Now we have a startup which is residing in the community with its representative Ann. Hello, and before we talk about your company, please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Hi, my name is Ann. I work at Proximi.io, and I'm actually Estonian, and I've relocated here to Helsinki some months ago. So I started in May. And previously, I've worked at an Estonian startup.
All right.
So it's very interesting for me to follow the startup scene in Finland, what is happening here.
So what does your current company do?
Proximi.io is an indoor positioning system for developers. So right now, for example, today, I'm working with a very interesting project, and our customer is from Norway. It's an animal park. So we help them with an app that allows animal parks visitors to do navigation and wayfinding. So when they're in a large...
So animal parks like safari.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the visitors come and they want to see different types of animals, and they can search from the app, and then they can find the route there.
Is it like tracking the animal somehow? Like in 5 kilometers you'll see a reindeer? Stuff like that.
It is not an open park area, so the animals still have their locations.
Right.
And it's not tracking the animals, but it is showing the visitors' locations where they can see the animals.
Interesting. Could have been useful in some of the parks I've been to, because you just like wander around trying to figure out and get lost in the end. So you're quite new to Maria01, but about Proximi, do you happen to know how long they're here?
I think they have been here from the beginning of the company.
Right.
Start. And they actually should have perhaps moved out already. But since they like the place so much, then they extended their time period here.
What's generally your experience about being to Maria 01 space? Well, you said you like it, but what kind of help or benefit do you get from it as a startup entrepreneur?